This is Jessica.
And this is Lewis.
We have a preschooler and a toddler. Our children are a different kind of perfect. This is a show about surviving parenthood throughout raising children with special needs, while keeping ourselves and our sanity intact. This is FUBAR, Surviving Parenthood with Special Needs Kids. Hello and welcome to FUBAR, Surviving Parenthood with Special Needs Kids. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Lewis.
Together we have two children with special needs. Benji is almost 4, and he has autism, ADHD, and some developmental delays. And Alex is about 1.5, and he likely had a perinatal stroke. This week, we talk about how gross our cars get, how to get children in and out of the car, and how to survive car trips of any length. First of all, thank you guys so much for listening to our podcast. Please feel free to subscribe wherever you get podcasts, but especially on iTunes. And if you do listen to our podcast through iTunes, please leave a 5-star review. It really, really helps other people to find our podcast and to help them as well. Please also feel free to check out our website at fubarpod.com. It has Lewis's blog. It has some reviews of really cool products that we've used that have been incredibly beneficial to us. It also has our show notes and links to our podcast as well. So please feel free to check it out. First, I wanted to start off with some updates. So a lot has happened in the last week. I found out that I'm going to need 2 minor surgeries in the next week and a half, which is super fun. One thing you don't realize when you find out you need surgery is that, oh, hey, you don't just go and get surgery. You actually have to get the pre-op EKG and the chest x-ray and the blood work and the doctor visit and the this and the that. And it's like, oh my goodness, I'm going in for like a 20-minute surgery and it's going to take 3.5 years to get it done. It's unbelievable. And then today I called to make sure everything was fine. And of course, everything has to be sent to every doctor. And then nobody knows how much it's going to cost or what it's going to cost or how it's going to cost that, or if it's in network or out of network, or do we have a deductible, or have we met our out-of-pocket max? And apparently there are different deductibles and different out-of-pocket maxes within individuals and within families. So hours and hours and hours of talking to people who send you to the wrong people, who send you to different phone numbers, who send you back to the same phone number that didn't work the first 18 times, and then spending 45 minutes on the phone with insurance asking a question to get really nowhere. So that's been super fun. We finally got Alex to the neurologist, which was really good. The guy was really nice, and Alex absolutely loved the neurologist, as you might hear later when we talk about some things. The neurologist said that he didn't think anything really bad or big was going on as far as the language regression, but he did think something was going on. So we're going to get some brain imaging and an EEG to rule out anything structural or anything seizure-wise, but he's not quite sure what's going on. The good news is, though, that he doesn't think anything big or bad's going on, and he does think that the symptoms from the stroke are improving. So he doesn't think it's anything like cerebral palsy. So that was a big relief, and we're really, really happy about that. An update on the financial situation. A few smaller episodes ago, we talked about financing medical conditions and our children's health and all of that kind of stuff. And I said I was going to write to people in the government. So I wrote to the councilman and I heard back. I wrote to the delegates and I heard back. And I wrote to the governor and I heard back. And all of them referred me back to the same things that we've applied for and been denied for. So thus far, really no movement on any of those fronts. Everyone seems to be at a loss as to what to do, especially for people who make even a hair above enough to not qualify for medical assistance. And I don't think they really realize that, because all of the links that they sent us to, they're like, oh, well, you should qualify for this, and that should be great. But if you actually read the specifics, you actually need to have medical assistance to qualify for any of these programs. So I'm hoping that at some point I can become an advocate for kids who have special needs that are having trouble finding funding, or testify about how big of an issue this is, because it's really a big issue, and when the governor doesn't know what to do, it's a really big problem. Lewis, do you have any updates from this week?
Updates. I'm just glad to hear that the neurologist didn't think that it was something like, cerebral palsy or anything severe, but still disconcerting about the regression. And I don't really know what to make of that. So it's kind of like I have this little bit of anxiety inside me that I have to kind of like put to the side, because until we get some more imaging done and everything and see the neurologist again, there's really not going to be any more updates. So thankfully, it doesn't seem like Alex is like declining in a very severe, fast way, I guess. I mean, he's not losing any other social skills or anything else except just that language regression. It's strange. I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, it's very strange.
And disconcerting.
Yeah, and even the neurologist didn't know what to make of it. I mean, it was enough for him to be concerned, and at this age, he was concerned that he didn't see any language out of Alex, but he really didn't know what to make of it, and he did say he does not feel that Alex has autism, but he really isn't sure what it could be.
Right. It would be very unusual because of the social capabilities he has, and just all these expressive, like these little things that he does and everything. It's so they say that you met one autistic individual, you've only met one autistic individual and everything. Of course, sure. But yeah, it just seems it would be really unusual for him to end up being autistic, unless it's he hits all of a sudden a plateau or something like that. But it doesn't seem like it's happening in that way, though. I guess it's kind of like a wait see.
Yeah. One quick story. So I had a patient today who was absolutely fascinating. He took everything incredibly literally, much like someone who has autism. And whenever I said something very literal, he became argumentative with me about it and didn't want to do it. And I found it really funny because I'm like, you know what? I have a 3-year-old with autism. I'm going to win this game. I could do this all day. And he came in saying he wasn't going to participate in anything that I did with him today. But wouldn't you know, I got him to do it all. Like, wow, having a child with autism really does have its perks sometimes. I think if I didn't have a child with autism, I wouldn't have known what to do, and I wouldn't have been able to be successful with this patient. So sometimes it does have its perks.
Good job. You know how to stick it to them.
All right. Our first affiliate today is Fat Brain Toys. I am obsessed with their toys and their website. Honestly, since I'm a big kid, I like to look on their site and see which new and fun toys they have, not just for the kids, but for me too. I'm only going to talk about a couple of things because I could go on for hours about their website, and you'll see the links on our website and in the show notes. One of them is Lamaze Freddy the Firefly. The kids still play with him. It's technically meant for little kids, and they're kind of too old for him now, but they still play with him. He makes crinkly sounds, is really brightly colored, has a tiny mirror on him and tons of patterns, and the kids really liked all the different textures that they can mouth. Since they both still mouth objects and the Firefly has so many different textures, they love it. Hard and smooth, crunchy, bumpy, everything. After having him for over a year, they still love to chomp on him. Our favorite product that they sell is called the Squishy Human Body. So you've heard me talk about Benji loving the body at this point and him being like totally obsessed. This is one of his favorite toys. He's loved learning about the skeleton part and being able to pull it apart, put it back together, but even more, he loved the squishy body parts that he could look at. Word to the wise, don't play with this toy on the carpet or the squishy body parts will kind of get gross pretty quickly. The product came with forceps and tweezers, which Benji loved, although, to be fair, he used it to swing the intestines around his head, and now the intestines are in little pieces. For older kids, it has a really cool information booklet about the parts of the body, and it has really cool and interesting details. My husband and I loved going through it. My kids are too young to just sit there and listen to it, so we haven't really read it to them yet. It also comes with a cool chart of the body, which is really helpful as you can put the man's body parts on it to see what each thing is, and then it'll help you put it back together. The body goes back together relatively easily, although an adult may need help with the squishy parts. He snaps back together pretty well, which helps store all of his parts. So it's a really cool and interesting toy for any kid interested in the body. So check out our website and our show notes to check out some of the Fat Brain toys today. All right, Lewis.
Now, as far as you know, that fat brain, like that's not in any way supposed to be derogatory, right? Because I mean, skinny brains are just as valid as fat brains. And the thing is, I always wonder is like when people get fat brains, I mean, would they start coming out of their ears or something like that? I mean, because your skull doesn't seem to grow as it gets fat, right?
Well, that would actually be a problem because it actually might lead to tonsillar herniation with the cerebellum and the brainstem. So you might actually really want to be careful. You want it to have, maybe a moderately fat brain, not a very fat brain.
And what diet do I need to do to ensure this?
I guess play with the fat brain toys.
So the fat brain won't make my brain fat.
Just healthfully fat.
Ah, okay. So don't take this literally.
Correct.
There we go.
Correct.
There we go.
All right, Lewis. So today I wanted to talk about cars. So things about our car, about the car rides, the children's experience in the car, our experience with the car. I know this sounds like a very specific topic, and it is, but we spend a lot of time in the car with the children. So given that it's always quite an experience, I really wanted to talk about it. So, Lewis, let's start with the state of your car. So how gross is your car right now?
It's not uncommon that I walk into my car and wonder if one of the kids took a shit in their pants. And the scary thing is 9 times out of 10, the kids aren't even in the car. So yeah, it can get pretty grody. I found things that have like ended up like underneath the car seats that obviously don't get taken out too often, and they get caked onto the seats and everything because I didn't have the foresight to put down like a plastic EDPM liner or something like that. At this point, I just don't care because my car is coming up on 15 years old, and as long as the engine's running, the brakes work, the tires are good, and I still have a steering wheel, it's whatever. I don't care if like there's toxic. Okay, I guess I do have care. There's toxic sludge, but yeah, it's yeah. I just do whatever I can to do the bare minimum to make sure I have a car that is functioning.
Was your car this disgusting before we had children?
No, because obviously, like when I would eat, if I were to eat in the car, it would be in a very localized area, and oftentimes I would clean it up relatively quickly after any kind of spillage. Obviously, with the Kinderlock, they have no cleaning capabilities, or at least they don't seem to really care. So yeah, that stuff just gets caked on. Because like, what time do you have to clean it up when you get to the place you're going? All right, I take out Benji, I got to take out Alex, and Alex can walk, but he's a little funny sometimes, so I still sometimes end up carrying him. I'm also trying to make sure that Benji doesn't decide to go try to hug a car or something. Sure. So it's like, go away, you do that. By the time you come back, everything's dried and crispy on there. But then you get home, you got to take the kids out, you got to do stuff with them. Can't just like turn your back on them and end up like, oh, look, there goes Alex playing in traffic. And then by the time you have a chance to relax, you normally don't think really about like, oh, did I remember to vacuum out my car and scrub it? Like my car has, from where I drive to work and how muddy it is, the undercarriage is just coated in a thick layer of scum and mud. And yeah, the paint job is terrible, just peeling off all over the place. Yeah, it's just like, I'm like, I just really don't care anymore.
So my car is bad enough that everyone makes fun of me. So there are constantly bad smells that I cannot find the source of. I have a bagel behind the seat of Benji that has been there, at minimum 6 months. Somehow it hasn't rotted yet, but yowza. There's always at minimum of an inch of crackers on the bottom of Benji's car seat. We went to give my mom my car seat for Benji a couple weeks ago, and Lewis dumped it out and made sure everything was out of it. And as he was walking over to my mom's car, tons of crackers were coming out of it. I don't know where these things came from, but they're like 75 pounds of cracker. And we don't even give him crackers anymore. I don't even know where it comes from. The kid just like births crackers out of everywhere. The floor of the car is covered in sticky lollipops, hardened marshmallows, and wrappers of God only knows what. It is full of a million seltzer bottle carcasses and tissues. And my favorite, it's covered in therapy putty. We went on a trip to the beach this summer, which, again, should have taken 3 hours each way, but took 5 each way. I was prepared with therapy putty for Benji. And, it really did help him to have fun in the car, not be too loud, not have any meltdowns. But he left it on his toys in the car in the heat overnight in the summer. And now every toy in that bag has putty in it. Plus my vacation bag. It's covered in 3 colors of therapy putty. As is his car seat, as is the door. I can't muster up the courage to clean it up, and this was back in June. I just pretend that one day it will have gone away. But it just is always there. It's absolutely unbelievable. And every time I take him out of the car, he has just a little bit of putty on his clothing. So maybe at this rate, if a little bit keeps going with him every day, by the time he turns 50, the putty will be gone. Lewis, what's the grossest thing in your car right now?
Any of the upholstery?
Well, specifically, what is the grossest thing on the upholstery?
Oh, there are questionable stains that I have no idea what they're derived from. So I'm like, what is this? Is this shit? Is it someone hacked up a hairball, or which would be unusual for a human, but you never know. Especially
since our cat is petrified of the children, so we would wonder where the hairballs came from.
Right, and the cat doesn't go outside, so that would be really even more unusual. I'm like, how did the hairball get here? Although, actually, I would say it would be Benji who probably brought it out after obtaining it from the kitty cat. Oh, what did I find the other day? I'm trying to remember if I found rotten apples and various fruits before, because I'm like, my car has this faint hint of vinegar. Oh, yeah, usually after going through like the pile of trash in the passenger side underneath the dash. Yep, then usually I'm like, oh, there's the apple core from the apple I ate 6 months ago, and it's mummified, and it's like the mold didn't even have a chance. It just dried. It's pretty gnarly. The good thing is once it's dried, and the good thing about summer is even though at first like the heat from the sun usually makes things smell kind of funky, if you close up your windows and you leave the car out in the sun for like as long as you can, eventually those smells kind of go away because whatever's inside has been baked beyond oblivion. So I've noticed that tends to help sometimes too. I'm like, well, just get it as high as you can in here. We used to do that with greenhouses.
So the grossest thing in my car that I'm aware of is those melted and hardened marshmallows that honestly, I think they're like 6 months old. I don't quite know what's in my trunk. My trunk is half full of I don't know what, and I don't really want to know what, and I really need to clean it so I actually have room for things in the trunk. But I'm really scared to see what's in there because I'm really worried that rotten food is in the trunk. Because there's a smell in my car, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know where it's coming from, and it just scares me. Do our kids like or tolerate car rides? Our kids are pretty decent as far as children go. Alex is getting tough in the car. He now throws toys out of his car seat the second that he gets them, and then he tries to take Benji's toys. Then once Benji has a meltdown and takes it back, Alex starts to fuss and scream because then he has nothing to do. So he takes his shoes off, and apparently his delicious socks as well, and eats them. Those socks must be so delicious. Then he gets bored. But eventually he does fall asleep, and then there was one. Benji plays with his toys for a while, and then he asks every question there never was. So many questions. And they are all existential questions that have no answers. Why did that person get that car? Why are there trees? Why is that tree there? Why are there buildings? I don't know. The first 6 or 7 questions I can answer. And then they get more and more existential, and I don't know. Like, why am I a he? Why are you a she? We were born that way? I don't really know what to tell you, kid. We do the best we can, but my answers now eventually end in because. Once we get down the rabbit hole of the 12th question, it's just because. Why? Because I don't know.
I must be doing something different, I guess, because today he actually told me to stop talking. When he asked me a question about why there's a shadow that blocks the moon, and I have trouble dumbing things down for
A little
people.
bit, yeah.
I do that to adults too when they're asking me like about like why we need to fertilize at a specific time, and usually I'll give them like the 20-minute long answer that describes like how photosynthesis and carbohydrate uptake functions in monocots. But anyway,
And you can see why Benji told him to stop talking.
yeah, and yeah, he usually just ends up telling me to stop talking. So I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm trying to give him as much of a direct answer as possible, but I do try to slim it up a little bit. It's difficult for me.
I mean, to be fair, when Benji asked why there was fog, he said it's because of a temperature inversion. So, there's that. So yeah, Lewis gets a talking to from Benji quite a lot. He's like, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Stop talking about that. Whereas he'll just keep asking me questions. I think it's because I explain it accurately, but at the level a 3 or 4-year-old can understand rather than someone else who's like 30-something. So back to being in the car with Benji, he loves vehicles, so we always point out all of those. And, whenever we're on the highway, there's a ton of stuff to look at. But eventually he does get fussy or hungry for things that we don't have, despite the mass quantities of snacks we take with us. So we end up making 1,000,000 stops, and it takes literally 1 to 2 hours longer to go anywhere than we meant it to. And of course, they both need diaper changes at different times, so they need different stops. So, Lewis, what makes car rides manageable for you? Like, how do you get through car rides with the kids?
Well, you might be surprised, but I'm often the one driving, so I have so much focus I have to put towards the road that for me that helps because there's only so much attention and everything I can give towards the little ones. But it can be difficult. Sometimes you have to really try to like almost like meditate out the sounds and everything in order to not end up like taking the car and like driving it off of like a cliff or into a retaining wall or something and turning yourself into a pile of gore. Sorry.
That's okay. Benji would actually really enjoy seeing that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he asked me something like, "Hey, Abba, when you die, can I have your guts? Or your intestines?" Yeah.
He does ask if he could take our brains out or cut our heads open so he could see our brains. So,
Yeah, he hasn't figured out yet that like, oh wait, we're all mortals and yeah, that would probably kill us unless it was done in a professional setting with a surgeon. More than likely we would perish from that. So we still haven't gotten onto the topic of like how death works. We haven't really explained that to him yet.
Oh yeah, we're avoiding that like the plague right now.
We're avoiding it because he's
3.
Well, he's 3. He's about at the age it's going to come up, but it's tricky because every child's different. We're not sure how he's going to react.
Well, and also we had a tree fall in the backyard and he was scared about that for 2 months. So I figured we're going to hold off on the death thing for the moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously that's the issue. We don't want him to get like fixed on it too strongly or something, but it's difficult. So now we have the luxury of being in kind of control of that conversation right now because as far as we can tell, no one is going to die anytime in the near future. So we can avoid that for right now. If something were to happen, then it's kind of like, well, we got to kind of explain it then. At least I feel like that would be the most appropriate thing to do in the best way you can. I watched an episode of Sesame Street where Big Bird and learned that Mr. Hooper had passed away or died. And supposedly that's like a textbook example of like a good approach to tell to children. So I have to take their word for it because I'm not a clinical psychologist.
So for me, like Lewis said, he usually drives since I hate driving. So sometimes when I remember and when I have one, I bring a magazine and tune out and flip through the pictures. Benji actually likes looking through the pictures of some of my magazines. So sometimes I give that to him and that occupies him for 5 minutes or so. Sometimes I play a game on my phone for a few minutes. I do like pointing out vehicles to Benji because it stops the endless questions for a few minutes. And I've been doing it for like 3 years now, so it's actually kind of fun to see what kind of new things, like especially if we find like a combine harvester or a hay rake or any of those other types of things. And we see cranes all over the place, so that's fun too. As a last resort, I'll say that it's dangerous to distract the driver, and that will quiet Benji down for a minute or two before it all starts again. I don't mind the questions until hour 3. Then I mind the questions. He asks great questions, but they're too great. They're all unanswerable and existential, and I don't know how to answer them. So, in the car, Alex tends to throw things. He eats his socks. Always has wet socks, if we can ever find the socks. I swear he just gobbles them up. He steals Benji's toys, then he fusses, then he falls asleep. Benji plays, looks out the window, fusses, eats and makes messes, and asks 8 billion questions. He really does like to look out the window because he is totally obsessed with vehicles. So obviously on the road, there are a lot of vehicles. So that works really well. He's also excellent at making messes. He is the king of messes. Now I want to talk about the specifics of like the how-to of getting in the car, getting out of the car, how to get from the car to the building. So for getting in the car, Alex is easy because he's little. We just stick him in the car. The end. Benji is tougher because he needs to inspect everything in the nearby vicinity and touch everything and play red light, green light. And then he needs to run away or elope or go hug all the cars that are coming into or leaving the parking lot. I remember this summer when he was at swim and I had to get him inside to change him before we were going to get in the car. And we passed a flower pot and he had to look at and touch every flower petal, every single one. We could not leave any untouched. We had to explore every one. Sometimes when he's at therapy, he has to, before he goes in, he has to inspect every rock or ask questions about the bark or about the bricks or about the dirt, or about all of the cars, or about the sky. So, that's just getting into the car. It's, we've got a lot of questions and a lot of things going on just to get into the car. And we have to make sure that the buckle is correct and there's not a twist or anything slightly out of the norm because that'll really bother him. Getting them out of the car. Again, Alex is easy. We just pick him up. No problem. Benji is tougher because whenever we go to unbuckle him, we get bopped in the head and our glasses get swiped and thrown. Really not great in the parking lot because then it really scratches up everything and then we're blind as a bat and we can't go anywhere. Then there's the negotiating and then he runs away and we have to chase him. It's really, 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 really not safe. So we park as close as we can because we really don't want him going to hug cars that are coming because he very much likes to try to do that because he, as you've heard us say, he's very friendly. He's very, very friendly. So, Lewis, how do you handle getting the children into and out of the car?
Well, at this point, usually, obviously, I use my handicap placard to park to the closest I can, which helps because at least I'm less likely to have him walk across the street in that point.
You mean run away across the street?
Yes. And usually I finally got him to the point where I'll unbuckle him and he'll actually get himself out of the chair and he won't even let me help him and he'll want to get himself down onto the ground himself. So we'll climb out and so far so good. He hasn't gone back into the street per se, but sometimes like my back will be turned for a fraction of a second because I'm turning around to go grab the stroller or something and he's on the other side of the car all of a sudden because he's trying to open the door to make sure Alex is there, or he's what was he doing? He was playing with the cherry tree outside his school today. I was trying to explain with him that could hurt it because the tree had just been planted earlier in the year. And he was really trying to bend that trunk over real good. So yeah, that's usually trying to make sure he stays still while I go and get Alex because, I can go and get Alex, but some days I might not have the stroller with me, or it depends on the day. Some days I'll get Benji out first, and some days I'll get Alex and put him in the stroller. But
which is easier for you?
Getting which kid out?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Benji, because I don't have to bend over. I open up the door and
No, I mean, which is easier for you to do? Put Benji in first or put Alex in first or kind of
in
getting them out?
putting them in. Usually, I'll put Alex in first. That usually get him out of the way. Basically, he usually starts screaming because he wants to be held or he thinks I'm leaving him, even though I never do. But that's usually how it goes in the morning when I'm getting him ready for school. I'll put Alex in the car, run in with Benji, make sure he's got everything, and then run out real quick with him, get him in there. He usually won't even let me get away from him without buckling him in. He's pretty good about that now because he has a responsible kind of fear about not being buckled in because he knows he can get hurt. I've tried to explain to him because usually he'll be like, why do we have to be careful of cars? Or, why do we not want to bump into them? I'm like, well, get a big boo-boo.
Well, I explained that we didn't really want to be smush on the ground, and he's like, but why don't we want to be smush? And I explained that it would hurt.
Because you're dead.
But why would it hurt?
It's irrelevant, you'd be dead. So
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's some positives to the fear of of your own mortality. That's the whole point of it. Like, oh, I should be okay because I don't want to just turn into like a blood stain on the, on the ground. Like, oh, that's why we don't play with the radioactive, plutonium or uranium rods or something. It's like, oh, but yeah, it depends on the day. But often, I'm like, kind of use Alex, get him out of the way so I can kind of focus on Benji because I'm just terrified that Benji's going to run into the street. Now Alex is mobile, so if he's not in the stroller, now I'm worried he's going to go into the street. At least Benji has some sense. Alex has nothing yet. Obviously, he's too young to really have any kind of sense.
And he's very friendly too, so hopefully he won't want to go hug cars. So like Lewis said, there's a lot of running away, running into traffic, trying to run in front of cars, and trying to hug moving cars. Personally, I try to get Alex out first because you can't really expect Benji to stay where you put him. But then getting them in is tough because if you put Alex in first, Benji will run off. But if you put Alex in second, I worry that he's going to get hit by a car while sitting in the stroller. So no matter where the stroller is. So I feel like you can't win for losing. So I feel like for me, getting Benji in first and taking Alex out first is the safest, especially since most of the time I have a stroller. So it works well to keep Alex stationary, but it's still tough. And no matter what, even if there are 2 or 3 of us adults there, Benji's still a flight risk. So, Lewis, is there anything that Benji or Alex do that makes it less safe for us when we're driving?
Well, Benji often will just he can't keep his legs still, so he'll kick the back of my seat. He's located strategically right behind me, for better or worse. But the thing is, I wanted to make sure I had easy access and visibility to Alex, which is why I positioned Alex in the passenger side in his car seat, and Benji is right behind me. The issue of that, he kicks me. Oftentimes, I'm able to ignore it now. The only issue would just be if he ever figured out how to like lean forward and like cover up my eyes while I'm driving, and then that would not be good.
The kicking could just be like a deep tissue massage.
That sounds like I guess, if you want to go with that delusion, sure.
Yeah. Right now, there's not much that Alex does that I feel like is unsafe, but with Benji, there's a lot of throwing toys, sometimes at us, sometimes at his brother. He's dropping toys on the floor and then asking us to pick them up, which is tough because they're usually in places that we either can't see them or absolutely cannot reach them, whether we're in the passenger seat or the driver's seat. Then he has a meltdown when we can't pick them up while driving, and usually this happens on the highway where there's just not a safe place for us to pull over. He always wants snacks, especially at the most inconvenient time, so we have to dig for those, but then he doesn't want what we have. Then he needs wipes when his hands are dirty, but of course, for some reason, we can't find where the wipes are, we can't reach them, or he can't clean his hands well enough for his liking, so that's not good enough. Again, there are the billion questions that need to be answered and all the things he wants us to look at. And then he'll be like, Mommy, look at the road, but look at that thing that I wanted you to see. And what's that back there? What did we just see? I don't know. I didn't see it. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. But yes, you did. It was right there. Well, I was looking the other way, but you saw it. No, I wasn't in your head. I didn't see it. But yeah, it's back there. Look at the road, Mommy. I'm like, but I can't. I don't have eyes in the back of my head. I can't look at the road and turn around and look at that thing at the same time.
Yeah, he snaps at me when I don't respond to him right away when we're in the car. Like I'm sitting there driving, trying to be like, all right, I'm turning a left here, and if I don't respond to him after he like makes a statement out loud, like, the tree is green or something, like even as it, consequential as that, he's barked at me a few times. Like, he'll be like, the tree's green.
Yeah, you have to repeat whatever he said, otherwise he gets really upset.
Like, dude, I'm driving. Take a chill.
Yeah, his newest thing is he likes me to play characters like Elsa or Anna from Frozen, which I don't even know if I'm pronouncing Anna right, because we haven't watched Frozen yet. I mean, the kids can't sit through a movie, so we've seen like 3 music videos, and Benji thinks that he's watched the whole movie, so that's fine with me. I know we'll see it a million times anyway, so I'm not quite worried. But it's really distracting because whether I'm driving or in the passenger seat, I have to think about how I'm going to respond. And it has to be in the most princessy type of voice. So I have to respond in exactly the words that he wants me to use and exactly the type of voice that he wants me to use. And oftentimes then it'll be like 5 or 6 characters, and I have to remember what voice I'm doing. And it's just incredibly distracting. I mean, it's fun at first, but it's only fun till it gets distracting. As far as coping with car rides, I do talk to the kids a lot and I ask them a lot of questions. And sometimes when I'm feeling passive aggressive, I will pretend to be Benji and I'll let him be mommy. And then I'll do all the things he does to me. Mommy, look over there. Mommy, why is there that? Why did they buy that car? What did you do today? I want this. Can you go get me that? I want a snack. I want my growing drink. And he thinks it's fun because he thinks we're playing a game. But after about 10 minutes of that, he's like, I already got that for you. I don't want to do that. You already had that. I'm done now. So I feel like, at least for a while, we can play a game and I can be passive aggressive in I guess a kind way. Lewis is giving me a look right now. Sorry, I'm a little bit delirious. It's been a long week. I do point out a lot of things and I bring a ton of toys for the kids, but usually they don't really care about them. I sing a lot of songs, which I really actually do like doing, and I play classical music if I can. The only problem is now Benji wants it to be silent in the car, and silent meaning he can talk, but nobody else can unless he tells them that they can talk. Yeah. So he told us he doesn't like music, which is a lie because he loves music and asks us to play it unless he doesn't want us to. So sometimes that doesn't work. A lot of times I just zone out if it gets to be too much, which I have been able to like safely zone out, like focus on the road and tune out the kids. What about you, Lewis? How do you cope?
I usually just try to kind of tune it out and focus on the road as best I can. If it got to be severe enough, I would just end up pulling over, but or I would shout back, and sometimes that would make him quiet. But I try not to do that too often. I try to keep a level voice with him. I don't want him to think of me as being like a savage asshole or something. So I try not to like snap at him or something like that, unless it's like something it's really serious. And I'm hoping, even though he has trouble getting a hint sometimes, I'm hoping that by doing that, he kind of like will kind of realize, oh, I gotta be quiet, or I gotta listen to this because Appa is really angry right now. So I don't know. That's the best I can do.
So technically, I think the longest car ride we were on, actually, now that I think of it, it was New York City. It was about 4 hours, although that one wasn't too bad. So I'm not going to count that one. The other 2 car rides, the longest ones, are supposed to be 3 hours, but they took at least 5. So we went to Sesame Place, which actually, now that I think of it, was supposed to take 2 hours, and it took 5. So that was something. And then we went to the beach, and that took 5 hours. So we've already talked about that when we talked about the vacation episode, but with the screaming and the diaper rash and croup, and it was just absolutely a mess. But Sesame Place, I think the last time we went there, Alex was like 3 months old, and we went there, and at the time, we hadn't yet discovered that headphones were really beneficial for Benji. So Benji was really triggered, and it was overwhelming, and he just really did not enjoy most of it. It was just way, way overstimulating for him, and Alex was a teeny tiny baby, and so it was just a long day. It took us like 3 or 4 hours to get there. We spent several hours at Sesame Place since we were going really far and we wanted to make the most of it, especially since we decided that there is no way in hell we were going back the next year because this was just way too much for us, especially with the newborn. So when we got in the car, everyone was overtired, everyone was a wreck, and it just took forever. It was supposed to be 2 hours, and the GPS said 2 hours, and 5 hours later we got home. We did make several stops to get out of the car and breathe, and we made some phone calls to other people for support because we were losing our minds. I played on my phone, we listened to a lot of music, but it was just really hard. Lewis, is there anything else you want to add about car rides in particular?
Well, lately I think we're starting to get the hang of it. It's still rough, but I think now that Alex is kind of getting on like a eating schedule, like we can kind of predict potentially when he's going to be hungry, within reason, of course.
Isn't that just always?
Yeah, but within reason. Yeah, I feel like they've gotten a little bit better. However, I wouldn't push it. we did like
what? You don't want to do cross country?
No. We did like an hour and a half one way, hour and a half back, whatever, the other day, and to my folks, and it really wasn't that terrible, especially because they slept part of it. So it depends, but it can be a pain in the ass.
They are awfully beautiful when they sleep. They just look like little angels. So yeah, car rides for our kids, it's rough, but it's been doable. And I know that's not the case for everyone. So I know we've been really, really lucky. And it was worse at one time, but I feel like it's manageable enough now that it's doable to actually go places. Not like far, far places, but, day trip length places. Our second affiliate of the day is Melissa and Doug products. We are absolutely obsessed with Melissa and Doug products, as is probably everyone. They're safe and well-made toys that are wonderful for stimulating a child's learning and imagination. I love the toys because they're made so that a child can't really hurt themselves on or with the toys, which I can't say for all brands. We own a ton of their toys. The ones I want to talk about briefly are the reusable sticker pads. Benji, as you've heard, is obsessed with any and all vehicles. The Melissa and Doug products make awesome reusable sticker pads with vehicles, which of course we have. They have tons of scenes, tons of vehicles, and other stickers. They're easy for little hands to take off and manipulate, even if a child has some fine motor impairments. The stickers come off easily. They stick well, but they can come off easily, and they can be moved or put away as much as you want, so you don't have to throw them out, and then you can use them as much as you want. If the stickers fold up, you can easily unstick them. The scenes are large, so you can fit a lot of stickers on, and the scenes are also very engaging for the kids. We also love the face sticker pads. We've tried these from other brands, but the stickers fall off right away and really frustrated Benji. The options were limited there, and the drawings were not so great. The Melissa and Doug sticker pads have really funny drawings and faces, and the stickers stick really well. The books come with tons of funny and fun stickers, and the end result of all the pictures is hilarious. We started buying this when Benji was a baby, and he thought they were hilarious then and still thinks about it now. And I thought it was helpful for him to learn about emotions as well. We also have a ton of puzzles, whether it's shapes or numbers or letters, but we also have the sound puzzles, which were really cool because they're really creative, they're really pretty, they're well made, they're smooth around the edges so you don't hurt yourself on the really good wood. And it's really neat for Benji because he can look at the wheels on the vehicles, try to figure out where each piece goes, and he loves hearing the very accurate sounds of each vehicle. They're audible but not too loud for sensitive ears. Just beware if you turn the lights off, the sounds go off, so it might startle you. And now it's time for fails, nails, and comical tales. Lewis, I haven't told you this one because I was kind of embarrassed, and this was a very long time ago. So for a while, Alex was getting a ton of pink eye infections, like all the time. It was pretty much every other week, and no matter what we did, they just wouldn't go away. So we would have to put the drops in, and he would scream, and we would do it 4 or 5 times a day, and it was just awful. So one day we got home, and he had the beginnings of pink eye. And so I went and I got drops and I put them in his eye. And then a few hours later, I put some more drops in his eye. And then a few more hours later, I was asking you, Lewis, where the drops were. And you're like, oh, well, I don't know, but don't use these here. These are for the eardrops. And I'm like, oh, I misread it. And I had 2 or 3 times put the eardrops in his eyes for pink eye.
Great. Well, at least we know he's not blind, so...
Sorry. That was a big fail.
Yeah. Oh, I'm assuming you did your homework to make sure that it wasn't an issue that we had to take him to urgent care for.
His eyes are working. Sorry. You're giving me crazy eyes right now.
Yes.
Eyes.
That's what I do.
So, Lewis, what was your fail?
Apparently, my mind is failing me because when I was... My mother, I was with her, she was holding up Alex while I was feeding him little spoonfuls of, I believe it was...
Oh, fingerfuls. They weren't spoonfuls.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it wasn't the applesauce. It was the... was it a guava I cut up? Yeah, I cut up and I as best I could removed as many of the seeds so I can feed it to Alex because he was hungry and he seemed like he wanted to try it. So, and as I was giving little spoonfuls, one time I went to give a spoonful and for some reason absentmindedly fed my mother a spoonful of the guava.
Oh, no, honey. It wasn't spoonfuls. You put your fingers in her mouth.
Okay, I guess I did do that.
Yes, you did.
Okay, well, they have witnesses, so I don't remember it as well because I was apparently so spaced out that I didn't even realize I was like, I fed my own mother without realizing it.
Well, that was the funniest part. You fed it to her. I thought you were being funny, and she thought you just wanted to give it to her to try, but you didn't even realize you did it.
I know. That's saying something, considering that I've had testing recently that as far as they can tell, I don't have any form of dementia. So, what we'll chalk that up to, I don't know.
Parenthood?
Yes, that's a good one.
All right, nails. I promise this isn't an ad. We're not an affiliate. They're not a sponsor, but we are obsessed with this product. Kiwi crates. So I don't know how I heard about them. I think it was actually from our old babysitter and friend, but we decided for, I don't know, if it was Benji's birthday like a year ago or something to get Kiwi crates. And if you haven't heard about them, it's a subscription box for kids. It's kind of like a science-y subscription box, and there's a different theme every month that has like 3 activities you can do, or art projects or science projects. And it also comes with a magazine. And Benji loves getting his own box every month. So then we got one for us as adults because we liked it and we like to tinker and do things together. And it was a really neat bonding activity. So we got one for us, which actually, since we got busy with the podcast, we haven't done together. But now Lewis is doing them with Benji, which they both think is really fun. And then we found one for Alex's age, which is really fun. And then they have like a little board book for Alex and some other little activities, which has been really fun. So we each get our own every month, and it's been really fun, and it gives us something to look forward to in the mail, and it's educational, and there's always a book with puzzles and pictures, and it's just been a really fun activity for all of us. So I call it a nail. What about you, Lewis?
Yeah, I don't have as special of one. Yeah, let me tell you, those Kiwi crates are pretty awesome. With me, I was able to make some noodles that Benji really enjoyed, and he ate a whole bunch of. It was like butter and basil pesto, I think, on top of some penne, and he inhaled them. And I was so happy because this guy is very picky with eating and textures, and that was a win. And I was just so happy with myself.
So I mentioned earlier that I took Alex to the neurologist yesterday, and they had, the tuning fork and the stethoscope, and it was like the little reflex hammer or whatever it was, and Alex just thought it was the coolest thing. So he grabbed the reflex hammer thingy out of the neurologist's hands and started doing it on his knees and on his belly and thought it was hilarious. So he went around to crawl around and walk around the room, and the neurologist went to type on the computer, and I was sitting on the table talking to the neurologist, and all of a sudden I see that Alex has gathered all of the doctor's stuff and shoved it into my purse to try to steal it and take it home. So I said, honey, we can't take that home. That's not ours. So I took it back out and I turned to talk to the doctor and he stuck it back in my purse. So he was totally trying to steal all that stuff from the doctor. What about you, Lewis?
Yeah, it was funny. Alex, he's been getting more like rough recently with his playing. He like one day I was sitting there and he like just kind of like looked over at me and just got so happy to see me that he like ran into me like a football player and like tackled me down to the ground, like pretty much. I was already kind of partially like kind of hunched over, so which is why he was able to knock me down. But he thought it was hilarious. He was laughing hysterically, and so I'm like, oh, I got him to laugh. So kind of did it a few more times and let him just knock me over, but nothing major. But it's really funny when you hear a little child like that laughing hysterically and they're just so happy, and it's because they're laughing with you because they love you. And I'm like, oh, my heart just melted.
Now it's time for us to share a self-care hack of the week, where we share what helped us survive. Okay, Lewis, tell me, what self-care tool got you through this week?
All right, my self-care. Well, I've still been going around exploring different podcasts. One I was listening to recently called The Thinking Atheist from Seth Andrews was pretty good. He fights a lot of like superstitious beliefs and things that people have. I was listening to one that was making fun of some people in the health food industry and everything. Not really making fun of them, but was actually like utilizing like actual like resources and references to critique and not just like made up stuff people pull out of their asses, oftentimes. So I think it's a healthy thing, but it gets a little overwhelming after a while because so many of those podcasts kind of feed on a certain sense of negativity. So sometimes I'll be like, all right, it's enough episodes of this. I'll listen to something else. But that's a new one for this week, though.
So mine are certain yoga poses. So I don't have time to do like an hour of yoga or like a whole, I don't know, sun salutation or whatever. But there are 4 poses that I really like because they stretch me out because my body always hurts. And they're really relaxing. So one is pigeon pose, and I'm not as flexible now after the babies as I was before, but it's kind of like you get down, one leg is kind of crossed under and one leg is out, and it stretches out your hips. And not everyone's able to get in that pose, but it's one of the only things that'll help stretch out my hips and my low back. I also like child's pose because just kind of getting down onto your knees and like stretching your arms out in front of you really stretches out your back, and my back always hurts. And I found out, oh wow, it actually was this week, that apparently I have degenerative disc disease and arthritis and bursitis. So apparently I'm now 80. And so using these things could actually really help with my back pain because I thought it was tight muscles, but no, it's actually more than that. So woohoo. I also like down dog, which is really good because, again, stretches out the back, stretches out my legs, and when I'm sitting all day doing my work, it can really help stretch me out. And shavasana, just kind of laying there and letting your mind wander and just relaxing, can be really, really nice. And, just spending a couple minutes doing some of these or just doing it whenever I need it is really helpful. And a story about down dog. So the kids have yoga at their school. Well, I guess not Alex yet, but Benji does. And he really likes it. Granted, when we get pictures, he's never actually doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's always all over the place or in the weirdest position. But he does come home and show us these poses. And he does this thing called yoga walking, which no one at school has ever heard of. So I don't know where he got this from. But he starts off in down dog and then puts one leg up behind him and starts hopping around on his arms and one leg. And he's just hopping around on the floor. Then he just topples over. He's like, look at my yoga walking. Look at my yoga walking. So it's awfully cute. And then he and I can do yoga poses together if we want because he knows some of them. So it's awfully adorable. Okay. So Thank you all for listening. That's our show for this week.
Thanks for listening.
This is FUBAR, Surviving Parenthood with Special Needs Kids. Well, that's it for our show. To find out more about the show, please go to www.fubarpod.com. Check us out on Facebook with our FUBAR, Surviving Parenthood with Special Needs Kids group, and on Twitter at FUBARPod. If you like our show, please click on subscribe and help us out by giving us 5 stars on iTunes or wherever you find our podcasts. And leave us a review so other like-minded parents can find out what you like about us and discover their community in which to survive and thrive. See you next time on FUBAR, Surviving Parenthood with Special Needs Kids.